why they can't get right. Oh, you know what I could have did like that? But it's all good. Let me do it like this. Because all they know is wrong.
Thank you. Thank you. All the accusations, all the everything, that you've been hearing about the federal government, what's going on with records to show all of these things that he's allegedly done. Remember, the man is innocent until proven guilty. He's faced with allegations only, but the allegations do not look good. Now, the bigger question that I have is, where is all the money? I'm expecting a high-powered lawyer to come in and defend him, especially in the case of your life. But we're not seeing that movement at all. We're not seeing a powerful attorney come in or anything. It was almost like he was using the public defendant rather than a high-powered lawyer. Not saying he won't get one down the road, but it seems like, he didn't even have one on retainer, which is a bad look also. I'm just confused by a lot of these things I'm finding out now. Now, sorry about that. Just got a message on my phone. Now, what I'm seeing here is the government and tax records show that millions of dollars in gang intervention funds have poured into a pair of nonprofits that was allegedly operated and allegedly, put into this former gang leader or current gang leader, however you want to put it, of the Rolling 60s Crip, who they said they suspect of diverting thousands of dollars for his own personal use. Big U from South LA community of High Park, after this criminal complaint was unsealed, they accused him of leading a mafia-like criminal organization called the Big U Enterprise. And they said that the activities he did benefited nothing but gangs and being associated with the gang called the Rolling 60s. And because of the Rolling 60s Crips, they said for years he has siphoned away all of the money for his personal use and interventions. All his funds, the city of Los Angeles paid to a pair of his co-mingled nonprofit organizations, the Ex-Offender Fellowship Network, which did the business as Development Options. Now, everything in the Ex-Offender Fellowship is registered as a nonprofit with the IRS, and the Development Options is registered as a nonprofit with the state of California. And the city of LA listed both names dealing with all the contracts. Now, a lot of people don't agree with that philosophy. They have a whole different way of dealing with things. Now, the California Franchise Tax Board, that's the state's tax collector. So when you're in a developing options corporation and your status is suspended as of April 2024, the public records did not cite a reason why. So the FTB, who's the spokesperson at the time, declined to comment on the specific suspension and wrote that the suspended nonprofit, corporation loses its nonprofit status and cannot conduct business and profit fund. So you look at how they got the money, right? So the reason that they got the money is because groups in the city of LA, they showed that they were scheduled to receive about $800,000 in July of 2024, which would be the final installment of a 4-year agreement that paid his organization more than $2.2 million for the intervention work. So what the city would do is issue a contract as part of its gang reduction and youth development program, which they call the GRID. The funds, various of nonprofit community groups that provide gang intervention services. Now, I'm here to tell you, I've done my research, and from what I've gathered from the research, process was actually made there. Crime was less, and the program seemed to be working into the youth development programs that they put in place. So things were being done with the money. I don't know how much or if he siphoned anything. I'm just saying, based off what I'm seeing and have researched, it's actually been doing something with, there's actually been process with the money in the community. The actual gang violence had dropped in those areas. Crime had dropped in those areas. The city records showed and revealed that Big U groups began receiving the city's gang intervention funding as back in 2011, according to records to the LA Controller's Office. But they received about $500,000 a year between 2018 to 2021. And the city's funding increased in 2023 following Eric, Garcetti, when he decided he was going to increase funding for the intervention work after the rise in violence crimes that followed the CV-19 pandemic and all that stuff, and the crime rate went up. So they basically increased the money into the program if he could help get the crime down, because those kind of crimes and stuff hurts elections. But the federal tax records show the ex-offender fellowship show it received private donations during that time, and there was a total rise in revenue from about $500,000 to several years to nearly about that $800,000 in 2022. So that's how they got to the $2 million in 2023. The private donations was not included on the public tax return for whatever the reason might be. So about $95,000 was going to Big U as president and director of this fund. So he gave top staff members, including corporate officers, directors, and trustees, some of the money, to keep them going. So they compensated them in 2023. Right? Now, according to the criminal complaint that was made Wednesday, the federal prosecutors say they believe Big U diverted much of that money to his personal banking accounts, including tens of thousands of dollars intended that was supposed to go to the group. And that $20,000 contribution that he got from Draymond Green, they saying that Big U didn't accurately file the tax returns and failed to pay tax on undeclared income and engaged in a scheme to defraud the bank so he could qualify for a home loan. But LA city government, reacting to the situation, didn't answer a lot of people's calls, and the city has zero tolerance for this malfeasance, what they called it, of the last 2 years. It was just an oversight on the GRID programs, and the city has strict oversight in place. However, this complaint alleges this is a sophisticated effort to thwart the oversight in many avenues. Now, there's more than about 20 damn organizations that serve under the GRID program. So Is you telling me Big U is the only one that the service providers and the people that provide for, prevention and intervention in the city of LA, they the only ones playing against the rules here? Come on. Like, this act does not reflect the work of the GRID program, because the GRID program has actually helped lead to a dramatic decrease in, like I told you, gang violence. Over the last 2 years, all the numbers have went to record lows. So the GRID program is actually working. But as I say, you can't credit just Big U to that, because there's 20 other programs within that GRID program. It's not just Big U. Now, things will probably change in the future, but as of right now, that's the nature of it. Now, if anybody else can get to the money, who knows? One thing we do know is that Big U's money was funny. And it was bizarre seeing like how much he actually got, or they said he got. Because it's like, what's the risk or the rewards? Makes no sense. That's my opinion. Now, others can have theirs, that's just, like I said, the nature of it. That's how this thing works, and keep moving forward.
Back, we're following several breaking news stories at this hour. We begin with that South LA man who the feds say used taxpayer money and donations to fund gang activities. In the past hour, we've learned that Eugene Henley Jr. and Brian Mejia were taken into custody. Henley Jr. is a longtime leader of the Rolling 60s Crips, according to the FBI. But in recent years, he worked in entertainment and ran a youth charity that the acting U.S. attorney now says was a front for his criminal enterprise. NBC4's Camilla Rambaldi live in downtown LA with the very latest developments on this. Camilla?
Now, hi, Colleen. 19 defendants in total in connection to this criminal enterprise. At least two of them appeared in federal court earlier today. And now, as you mentioned, Eugene Henley and another fugitive are now in custody tonight in connection to this case. A known community activist and founder of a youth nonprofit in South LA, now facing federal charges.
A career criminal known as Big U,
Eugene Henley is accused of being a longtime leader of the Rolling 60s Crips street gang. Federal prosecutors say Henley ran a criminal enterprise and is accused of a number of crimes, including racketeering, human trafficking, fraud, and the 2021 murder of a musician.
He has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur running a music label, and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles. The facts alleged in the complaint paint a very different picture. It is one of a murderer, a thief, a liar.
Federal authorities say there are other alleged gang members facing charges they say are connected to the criminal enterprise. A number of arrests were made this week. These sketches show two defendants, Sylvester Robinson and Mark Martin, in federal court Wednesday afternoon.
4 of the 19 defendants were already in custody, and 10 defendants were taken into custody in the last 24 hours.
Court documents also state Henley fraudulently obtained funding from the city of Los Angeles through the Gang Reduction Youth Development Foundation. Henley was the founder behind the nonprofit Developing Options that helps support at-risk youth.
Mr. Henley duped the county of Los Angeles by running a nonprofit named Developing Options, which was set up to pull youth out of the gang life and promote anti-gang solutions. Yet Mr. Henley continued to personally orchestrate violent gang activity that impact our communities.
Court documents state Henley had drawn hundreds of thousands of dollars for his own use.
Mr. Henley is accused of embezzling donations made by celebrities, professional athletes, and businesses to his charity.
Federal prosecutors say Henley could face a 20-year prison sentence if convicted on the racketeering charges.
mostly coming off as a ripple effect, but it's like ripping off a Band-Aid.
Are expected to be in court tomorrow. In downtown LA, Camilla Rambaldi, NBC 4 News.
Government and tax records show millions of dollars poured into the nonprofit the feds say was at the center of this criminal enterprise. Our investigative reporter Eric Leonard joins us now with more on how this organization was being funded and where all this money was going. Eric.
Oh, hi, Michael. Well, the most surprising discovery here is that the nonprofit called the Ex-Offender Fellowship Network, which was also known as Developing Options, a pair of nonprofits that the city says were essentially one entity, were facing suspensions from state tax authorities. The city of LA has been paying these nonprofits millions of dollars in recent years, and the amounts have only gone up. The California Franchise Tax Board issued a suspension notice in April 2024 for one of the nonprofits operated by Eugene Henley Jr., who federal prosecutors in LA announced Wednesday faces racketeering and corruption charges for allegedly misusing money meant for the city's gang intervention efforts. Henley's most recent contract with the city shows a payment of nearly $800,000 due in July 2024, the final installment of a 4-year agreement that paid his groups more than $2.2 million for intervention. Henley, seen here in a red carpet photo, began forming the nonprofits in 2009, according to state records. They began receiving city gang intervention funding as far back as 2011. Between 2018 and 2023, LA Controller payment records show Henley's groups received around $500,000 a year. Then, in 2023, a significant increase that followed then-Mayor Eric Garcetti's efforts to increase funding for intervention work after the rise in violent street crime that followed the COVID-19 pandemic. Looking at the tax records for the Ex-Offender Fellowship, which includes the city money and private donations, you can see its revenue went from around $500,000 a year to nearly $800,000, then to nearly $2 million for 2023, the last tax return available. Where was the money going? The tax returns show while Eugene Henley Jr. was paid $95,000 as president and director, nearly all the money collected went to compensate unnamed top staff members, including corporate officers, directors, and trustees. According to the criminal complaint, Henley diverted much of that money to his personal bank accounts, and the feds say he allegedly pocketed tens of thousands of dollars in donations intended for the groups, including a $20,000 contribution from an NBA All-Star. Federal authorities say, in addition to all of that, they believe that Henley evaded taxes by not reporting all of this income, was also allegedly involved in a scheme to get a home loan that he wouldn't have qualified for otherwise. We asked the city of LA for its response about its oversight of these gang intervention programs. The mayor's office sent us some remarks a few minutes ago. It said the city has strict oversight in place, but they say the allegations made public today show that there was a sophisticated scheme to thwart that kind of oversight. Live in the News Operations Center, I'm investigative reporter Eric Leonard, NBC4 News. Back to you.
And with Henley Jr.'s influence reaching across the community and entertainment industry, there are questions tonight about where else his network might spread. NBC4's Conan Nolan joins us live from the News Operations Center to continue that part of our coverage tonight. Conan?
That's right, Colleen. When it comes to public money, this could not come at a worse time. Remember, state and local governments, including the city of LA, are looking at a major budget shortfall. They normally ask Washington for help. This news is not going to aid that effort. It was just yesterday on the south steps of City Hall when Mayor Karen Bass touted the success of publicly funded anti-crime community groups. A message to Washington not to cut out federal grant money for the mayor's signature effort at fighting gang violence.
Through our gang reduction and youth development program, also known as GRID,
Went into drug trafficking, fraud, even murder, and Henley's own bank account.
Criminal enterprise where hundreds of thousands of dollars were siphoned off that should have gone to charitable purposes, gang reduction, gang intervention.
The news comes exactly at the wrong time for those trying to halt the evisceration of federal spending by the Trump administration, and most specifically, billionaire Elon Musk. While crime prevention grant money is a tiny fraction of the overall federal budget, it helps with the messaging from the White House, says Jessica Levinson, former chair of the Los Angeles Ethics Commission. She teaches election law at Loyola Law School.
Is it possible that this becomes an example for Elon Musk to point to? I think at this point, everything is possible. Everything is on the table, saying, look at this terrible use of your taxpayer money. That's generally a winner for people who want to reduce federal funding and federal spending.
And it's not just the issue of gangs, but also of homelessness. Today, the Los Angeles City Council voted 13-0 to try to track the money they get from the city and over to nonprofit groups. One member of the council saying that nobody at City Hall actually knows how many of those community groups go into homeless encampment areas to help or how many beds are filled every night. I'm Conan Nolan, NBC4 News.
If a man really hated ads, here's what he would do. Day one, he would install Pi on his computer without spending a dime because it's 100% free. Day two,
Basically, in my opinion, and the reality is that all of us can read between the lines. If you do wrong and try to get right, they're gonna still come after you. If you do right, you don't have nothing to worry about. But if you black and you don't do right or wrong, you're still going to be investigated. The big picture is that there's so many different dynamics with what they have on this man that it just doesn't make sense about what are we looking for? 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 different situations in one? Being allowed to utilize the system the way it's supposed to be, and you still get reprimanded? Are you conning, or you stealing? Are you, with a nonprofit organization, you're supposed to show where the money goes to and have legitimate people. It's the same thing that happened with Black Lives Matter. Where did all that money go? What happened to all the money that went with Kamala Harris? Everybody who has any type of organization, all these companies, Fannie Mae, even all the banks before Obama came and cleared all that shit up. It don't matter what it is. You have to realize it's seen across the board in the biggest picture of it all that most people do not know how to manage multi-millions of dollars, let alone their own financial means. So you can get anybody in trouble. But when we talk about murder, we talk about criminal shit. You can't do wrong and think you can just push that away in your life and try to do right and think they're not going to keep coming after you. Yeah, they have a program out in California where they said the police work with the gangs. And instead of just throwing the gangs away because the gangs outnumber the police, we're going to have ways and we can take the OGs, put them in a position to be able to make something where others can look up to them and try to do the right thing. So they have grant funded and programs to help with structuring people who have influence to come and communicate with them to get them out of that situations. But the police don't want that. They don't want that. the court system don't want that. That's all the front. It's there, but they want it to fail. Now, when you look into the big picture of it, it only takes one mustard seed of wrongdoing to make that man out to be a criminal and conducting criminal activity, and he'll be revoked of his freedom and brought back to the penitentiary. And that's what looks like is being done. Extortion is very dangerous. Embezzlement is very dangerous. Just survival in the wrong way, even when you're trying to do right, could be a trap. And we just live in our one life. All of it is in vain. Your children have to find another way. Your wife, she's going to have to find another man. Your life is ending up in jail for life when you do criminal activity because you just trying to be out here flossing for survival, and you don't want to fall down. But the government don't play. The feds don't play. Once they got you, they will follow you forever. All these social media heads, all these people on social media, they have access to information and they have influence, and they are out here giving the information up, and they're not even they're getting paid from social media, but they're glorified snitches as well now. You can't be coming from a objective perspective, if you will, playing both sides of the fence. Once you get into understanding the dynamics of the law, common sense, reasoning, basically you have to be a snitch because you're going to tell it like you see it, and it's going to how can I say this? Really just let me come at you, like make you as you almost become a part of the media, make you tell on people. So how can Willie D sit down and have this man sitting in front of him, and whatever biases, and I'm not just picking on Willie D. Matter of fact, I don't really want to bring nobody's name up, but you can see that there's motive in that young man getting killed. You could see how the development of the PPO loans and the distribution and the movement of that money can be misallocated easily. It may never get to the people that are down at the bottom, like Black Lives Matter, all those different chapters, and all the women who were in charge of that program never got those funds to the appropriate area. But them at the top, got all the material things they wanted. And across the board, any kind of grants or funded money always ends up messed up. Somebody give you something, you never will appreciate it like you earn it. you'll find the best way to spend it fast and mess it up. Across the board. Look how many times your president, our current president, number 47 now, or whatever he is, used to be 45. Look how many times he went bankrupt. Misallocated, misused, and utilized Chapter 13, 7, and 11. And didn't pay taxes, got audited, and still living his life with all his names on his building. Come on now. So in this life, it's better to run under the radar and be poor than trying to be up there in the upper echelons and try to be rich. Because it's dark and hell is hot. Strap God, KOD testimonies.